Hi, I'm Libby Cornish from Decadent Alternatives. Welcome to my online gluten-free baking classes. In this class, we're going to be doing sourdough breads. I'm going to split up sourdough breads into a couple of videos simply because it takes a long time, and I'd like to focus on, say, the mixing, then scoring and baking. So, ingredients, pretty similar to normal bread. And the only thing is that we're putting in a sourdough culture instead of the yeast. So we have Baker's Magic flour. I've got some sugar and salt, psyllium husk, oil, water, and a bit of my sourdough culture. This is our Arthur. One of the reasons that we need to actually add psyllium is to make the mix thicker, so that when we put it into, it'll be a free form like a cob, or you can do tinned loaves as well, but it'll be free form, might be a cigar shape or a baguette or just plain a round cob. So the difference with the blend is that this is the sourdough culture and active. Normally I would put in 100 grams of water with yeast and sugar, and so this one contains 150 grams. Basically, we've got 100 grams of water, 50 grams of essentially flour. So I'll put that into. I'll put the wet ingredients in first. So there goes a bit of Arthur, the oil, get the last of that oil out. I like to put in the wet ingredients first so that they don't, I don't get too many lumps forming when I put in the flour. I'll give that a mix first. Then I'll put in the psyllium, the sugar and salt, and the flour. The addition of psyllium is more than I'd put into the hot cross bun recipe, so it'll be a thicker mix. I'll then make sure that I scrape down the sides to ensure that there's no flour on the side of the bowl or underneath. And at this stage, we really want to make sure that all of the lumps are out. So I'll give it another quick. So that's about it. Now it comes to now we've got to actually put it into a basket or another container. I have made a whole heap of loaves that I have ready to be baked, and they're in all of my bannetons. So I can't actually put one into a banneton, but it was the same as I did for the cob loaf. But I've just picked out a round container from the kitchen, and I'm going to line it with some chucks. This will stop the dough actually sticking to the container, and it makes it easier to get out. Now the other thing is that to get it in there, we want to be able to shape it into a round ball. I will need to shape it with my hands, and to do that I'll use oil on the table. Get it, and you can see it. It's quite a stiff dough. So basically, I'll put a little bit of oil on the table. A little bit of oil on my hands. And it'll be sticky at this stage. The dough will be sticky. Now, the container I've used is too small to put all of that in. So in this case, I would halve the dough. I'll put that one back in there. Shape it with your hands. Try to get a nice smooth surface and put that down in the bottom of the... Now the difference with doing a sourdough instead of the yeast is that it's going to take a lot longer to actually prove. So this might take 3 to 5 hours to prove instead of what you'd get a 20 to 30 minute proving time with yeast. We don't want the top of the dough to dry out. So there's a couple of ways that we can get to stop that from happening. And the other thing that why I like doing this particular way is that if you have members of your household that are not celiacs or not on gluten-free diets, it means it ensures that you're keeping your bread, your sourdough, gluten-free. And that is, I'll put it into a Ziploc bag. I'll then get a squirty bottle, squirt a couple of times on me and zip it up. I will either put, depending upon how I'm going to prove this, I'll either put it in the oven at 37 degrees for maybe say 3 hours. The other thing that you can do is put it in the fridge overnight, or as I do, and I live near Ballarat and it's freezing, I've got eskies on my back veranda that I put the ones that I prove into the eskies. Now, so this will be ready to prove. I would like to show you some of the breads that I made last night and had in my esky overnight, and I have a number of them. So this one is, I made this, I put a bit of purple maize starch in it. That is about ready to come out and bake. I have a seeded loaf in a long banneton. I have a baguette that I will bring out. So what these now are a lot easier to handle than the dough. So if I wanted to get this one out, I can actually then, it is much easier to handle. It's lost a lot of its stickiness. So I'll put that down on a baking tray. The other ones that I've got another seeded loaf. And another cob loaf, basically. So I'm going to be baking these, and the next video I'll have, I'll show you the finished product. One of the things these differ in is the amount of psyllium and the amount of water, and that is going to come down to personal preference. It will also come down to the size of the loaf and the shape of the loaf. This is where it actually gets a little more complicated in terms of how you are going to bake your bread and for how long. So I'm going to bake these loaves now. Thank you for listening.